Hey guys, Sean, Leslie Liver Dummies. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight as to what I'm doing with bolt springs, or, well, sometimes they're referred to as valve springs. The craziness that goes on in my head. So I'm gonna do it in the simplest form I can. And I'm gonna start with a Umarex valve. This is a blow forward type of firing system. Blow forward means air propels your bolt forward and spring pressure resets your bolt. In its factory form, I believe the manufacturers do a very good job of making this marker or the markers efficient. And what I mean by that is, in the case of Umarex, you have a bolt guide, which I also refer to as a bolt stop, and I'll explain. Blow forward, so your bolt is going to blow forward. It compresses like that when it shoots, and then it fires the bolt back and closes the valve. This is your valve. Down the center there is your firing pin, which interacts with your air valve O-ring there, which makes a seal. When this is closed like this, it can build pressure in here. There's a stiction point here when that pin breaks free from this O-ring. In this case is right about there. That is when air begins to release out the end of your bolt and travel, hopefully, down your barrel and propel your projectile in the right direction. From the factory, again, they do a good job that this valve is in the optimum position. The firing pin is opened long enough that sufficient air escapes and propels your projectile. What happens though is we change things. We change parameters. We add a Z extension. You HBA this thing and you're not running a CO2 in there, or you're running CO2 in the back and this is empty. You are adding volume. In its factory form, the spring and the stop are limiting your bolt travel, which is the amount of time the bolt is open. So the valve is open essentially. So picture this. Fire your marker. It's just now hit the stop. It released the amount of air it could in that amount of time, and then it slammed shut. Well, it doesn't matter how much air you got behind it. It only has that amount of time to let that air out. And in the case of CO2, where pressure isn't adjustable, we want to open that as long as we can if we're adding volume. With HB, it's not as necessary because we can actually increase the pressure of what's inside here. So in the same amount of time, more air can escape, which is kind of where those short pins and such come in. The idea is to open the valve. So here's a stock valve is open. And if you imagine the pin, this firing pin inside is shorter, say it opens there. Now, air isn't, this bolt isn't necessarily in the optimum position to be sending air down the barrel. It might just start escaping out the sides. And I'll show you in a sec on the FSC barrel because it does a really good job of demonstrating that. So short pin isn't necessarily a good thing. Now, I do need to test it now that I'm a little more involved in what's going on here. So by me changing the length of the bolt spring or the length of the bolt stop, essentially what I'm trying to do is open this valve the longest, but still like without breaking free of the end of this, because it's the same as having a short pin. So if you release the air too early and air is escaping down your mag well here, or you release too long, it's gonna escape out the back because they're not connected, right? So if they're like this, it's perfect. that's what I'm searching for. And the factory did get it right, guys. There's no reason to change some of this stuff. And I don't want to overcomplicate this and maybe scare people away. I'm like to the extreme searching for like every little ounce of power. And efficiency generally equates to power. But as I demonstrated in that last video, your barrel length also does. So even if I have this valve open, its maximum amount, like the perfect amount, I am limited by the barrel length. I might be wasting air in this position. So imagine this is the perfect length and I have a short barrel. I'm only gonna get the same FPS all the time. Now, if I only function the valve that much with a short barrel, I might get the same FPS as I'm getting here, but it's more efficient on air. Now, valves open that much and I have a really long barrel compared to valves open that much and a really long barrel, this is gonna perform much better. It has more dwell time. Dwell time is the amount of time and there is air flowing from your valve behind the projectile. And as soon as that projectile leaves your barrel, dwell time ends. So the longer your barrel, the longer your dwell time. FSC, air chamber and bolt, much like this, the Umarex system. FSC doesn't have a separate guide. FSC uses the barrel itself. So when you fire your FSC, the bolt travels in to the barrel. It is, well, here, I got a spring right here, actually. The barrel end is actually, this is your bolt guide. So this bolt travels in, spring compresses against the end of your barrel, and if you'll notice, you have an FSC, look at the end of your barrel, how it's all kind of marred up and the paint's missing. That is because the spring is compressing against it and it's acting as your stop and your guide. Now, this is where I wanted to show. Demonstration of what would happen with a short pin if it wasn't set up right, or you just threw it in there thinking it's gonna add power. Factory FSC, say, fires optimally. That's how the factory FSC fires. The valve has released its air. It's right about that position. This is with a factory firing pin on the inside. Now imagine you put a short pin on this. It might fire with the bolt in that position. So it's releasing air before it's fully breached that projectile. And air is actually going down your mag well. And you might have picked up on this. If you see your mag spring bouncing, or even if you're getting a lot of flips sometimes, it can be just because you're trying to send more air than it really needs for the barrel and the projectile you're using. But in a nutshell, a short pin would fire in that position, and the factory pin would probably fire in that position. Now, you tell me exactly which one's more efficient. This one, for sure. But it doesn't, there's no one perfect answer. All these markers, essentially I don't sell any of these markers. I build them for myself. So I can really focus on my particular marker. And I'm hoping some of this information translates, and can help somebody that wants to try this. And it's definitely a good jump off point. I mean, when I share something, it's because it has worked for me. I can't guarantee it's going to work for you, but it's going to get you close. And if you got that far and you're mechanically inclined enough to at least take that jump into it, you're gonna figure it out really quick. What works and what doesn't. And quickly, I got another valve on the table here. This is my TMC valve. This is from a blow forward type marker. Air valve pin. there's a valve spring inside here. You've heard me say I've lightened the valve spring in here, and I strengthened, sorry, the hammer spring. So a hammer comes and strikes this pin and releases air and goes down your barrel. In this case, I want this valve to stay open as long as I can, just like I am with these. It's no different though. It can be open too long and be wasteful. But in a nutshell, when this spring's light enough that it's really easy to push, but still seals this valve. It needs to make a seal. If it's too light, you won't build any pressure in here. The hammer comes and it strikes. Super strong hammer spring against a really light valve spring. Holds the valve open longer. So that hammer strikes and kind of has like a hold, a delay before it kicks back. Now, if the spring in here is too strong, it's just gonna go boink, boink, like that. Instead of a strike and a hold, a slight hold. I mean, this stuff happens really fast. But even just a fraction of a second longer can dump more air where you want it to go. I hope this helps you guys. Best I could explain it. I lose sleep over this stuff.